Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is firefighter Lionel Crowther from the Winnipeg Fire Department, and you're listening to Dr. Richard Gasaway on SA Matters Radio. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 52 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from beautiful Swift Current, Saskatchewan, where I'm in town to deliver a keynote address and 2 plenary sessions on situational awareness for the Saskatchewan Fire Chiefs Association. Thank you to Chief Dennis Pylon for arranging this opportunity for me to share my passion with your members. In today's episode, I interview Andover, Minnesota Fire Chief Jerry Streich on the value of having a safety officer assigned during training evolutions. Chief Streich took part in a pilot program sponsored by the League of Minnesota Cities, his department's insurance provider, in an effort to reduce training-related injuries. The program has now been in place for 2 years, and the Andover Fire Department has not had a single training-related injury in that time. Now that's impressive. Chief Streich discusses how the program came about and how other departments might be able to benefit from assigning a safety officer during training evolutions. Specific takeaways from the episode include the importance of having safety on the minds of all participants in a training evolution, how safety can become a valuable recruitment and retention tool, how to identify predictable injuries during training evolutions, how to reduce insurance costs by reducing training injuries, and ways to implement a training safety officer program in your department. So let's jump on board with our interview with Fire Chief Jerry Streich.
So the League of Minnesota Cities is the primary insurance agent for the majority of the cities in Minnesota. And they've identified some commonalities in injuries in law enforcement and fire. And those injuries included back injuries and primarily injuries that result in training. So the League of Minnesota Cities came to us on the fire side and asked our department back then if we could pilot a program that introduced this idea of having a safety officer on site during training and identifying how we can mitigate the incidents from occurring during training. So we moved forward and took sort of the beginning stages of the program that law enforcement developed, which meant at the time that they were going to have a safety officer on site at all times, and they were going to stop training anytime there was an emergency that occurred on site. And we took the program and added some firefighter-specific stuff. You know, we have to have acronyms, and we have to have color. So we included some signs into the program that allows the firefighters to see the type of injuries that they could sustain while training.
Jerry, had they before they came to you, had they implemented a safety officer on-site program in the police world before they came to you to do it for the fire department?
Right, so that was a pilot program for the local law enforcement as well, and they happened to use the law enforcement agency in our community, and then they came to the fire side, and they found good results on law enforcement side that having someone specifically at training that was only focused on safety provided a benefit.
So not unlike what we would have on a fire scene, where you'd have a designated safety officer whose job in the fire scene would be to walk around and make sure that things are being done safely and to best practices, and to be looking for those potential pinch points before something would occur. It's taking that concept and just bringing it into the training side of it.
Yeah, exactly. You're bringing it into the training side and focusing on training specifically. And think about the amount of time training officers put into training objectives and the goals of training and the equipment we're going to use and all the way down to the specific task of what we're going to do in training. And then consider how much time training officers actually put into focusing on safety. And are we giving it the same amount of time? And should we be providing more time on the safety portion? Let's develop a safety plan prior to the training plan and then incorporate them together.
So there's actually now a developed safety plan that goes along with the drills. It's not just a designated person who just kind of walks around the safety or walks around the training ground looking. There's actually a plan created with safety as the focus before a drill is actually implemented.
Right. Yep.
Wow.
So we call it safety and training. So the first thing we're going to identify is if we're going to do ladders today, what are the training, the probabilities we're going to have potential injuries and so on with training? Well, what's the weather like? Well, it's going to be sunny. Okay, let's start thinking about hydration. Let's start thinking about the type of equipment they're going to. Are we going to have them in their full firefighter PPE? And start looking at those issues. How about climbing the ladder specifically? Well, now we have potential falls. We have to make sure the ladder is properly footed and grounded. We have to look for power lines in an area around the fire station or wherever we're training. And just continue to go through that process of identifying the safety concerns prior to addressing the training itself.
Okay. And is there anything in the safety plans that have a mechanism to do kind of like a pre-drill personal evaluations? Like, are you doing like baseline blood pressures or anything like that? I know it would depend on the type of drill, but is there anything that's doing like a baseline to make sure that somebody is physically capable of participating in that particular drill?
Yeah, we have our annual medical physicals and that kind of stuff, and anytime we're on a scene for a duration of time, we have a rehab trailer and we go through the rehab standard and the blood pressure checks and all that. We haven't brought that to the level. Only one time I can think of that we brought that to the level of training, and that was when we were doing some pretty aggressive search and rescue kind of processes through what we call a SCBA rodeo, where we put a bunch of obstacles and stuff, and we measure it from the beginning at the end, because you train as you fight, right? If you do it in training, you're likely going to do it on the fire ground as well.
Yeah.
But what we're addressing here, especially with these signs, color-coded signs, is prior to training, the training officer and staff has already developed a plan identifying the issues we could have related to safety. And then we have signs that we post, and we use the color yellow, red, and black. And you note there's no green. There's never green. There's always an issue to get injury. There's always an opportunity to get in trouble. And on those signs, the yellow one states, you can have strains, sprains, bruises, bumps, cuts, and abrasions. And I sort of joke with the guys and say, today's a yellow training. It's classroom portion. You could fall back on your chair and bump your head against the wall. Your hand could slip off your head because you're so bored and it could smack the bottom of the table, But you can sustain strains and sprains. All the way to red, then we move to those kinds of training drills that we can break and burn. We can puncture or dislocate something. And then, of course, I classify a ladders drain as a black training day, meaning you could sustain severe injury, death, or some sort of inhalation injury if we're going to do an interior attack at a burn trailer, let's say. So what we do is we talk about them, we plan for it, we bring the group into the training room, we go over the type of injuries that they can have, and if you're doing a multi-station type program, there could be different colors per station. But what it does is it embeds it in their head, but we believe the color has really made a big difference, because now when they're approaching the training scenario, they're seeing a red training scenario, and right away they already know red is higher than yellow, but it's not black. But so that's worked out really well for us.
Okay, and then I assume that the training then has some kind of a safety plan debriefing before the drill starts, and then when you talk, say like today is a red day, breaks, burns, punctures, dislocations. Is there any training before the training about how to avoid or prevent, or in the element of prevention?
Right. So let's go back to the ladders training.
Okay.
And we say this is a black training.
Okay.
The instructor then, whoever's training that, is going to identify those potential hazards that can happen climbing the ladder. Remember, the chief said it's a black day today, and we're going to be doing some training in the black. Well, this is what he's talking about. It's proper footing of this ladder. Overhead power lines. Before you raise the ladder, what are you doing? Looking for power lines. Great, they've identified. We're going to make sure that it's on a sound wall that isn't burning from the inside, and we put the ladder against it, and it creates a collapse. Those kinds of things, those kinds of messages the instructor brings forward the whole time.
Okay. Now, the instructor creates the safety plan?
Instructor, or those instructors with the training officer, whoever's doing it, creates the plan. Yeah.
Okay. And then for a drill, so the instructor who creates the safety plan is then going to teach the drill.
Right. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll give you that. Who serves as the safety officer?
Well, then the part of this program as well is to appoint a safety officer in a vest, and it could be, again, in multi-station, to be multi-safety officers. We bring somebody from the team, somebody who may be going to be the last one in the rotation of working pumps, let's say, and we say, you're going to be the safety officer. Do you understand what your role is? Remember the kind of things. If you see anything that could cause injury or harm, you stop the drill right away. So they put the vest on, and their job is only to look for safety concerns and hazards by the hose being laid across and people walking across, whatever the issue is.
Is that person, I know, I'm looking at him, you're going to say ideally, is that person an officer?
Not always an officer.
Okay. And does that person, that safety person, get any training before the vest is donned, teaching them how to stop an evolution? I mean, you could take a firefighter, put a vest on them, and say, if you see something unsafe, stop it. But if they're timid or not maybe intimidated by a particular officer who's running that particular station, would that firefighter speak up to that officer? Has there been any training about how to speak up?
Yeah, I think that's the important part of this entire program, is it has to start at the top. And the top has to say, yep, we're going to minimize our safety. And I'll tell you, I haven't had an injury for 2 years since this program has been implemented. And the League of Minnesota Cities, who's our insurance agent, they love that.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, right.
But it all starts at top, and everybody understanding what the program's about. Once they understand what the program's about, and they know that they are playing a role in it, I think there's value in it. And everybody knows and expects that the person with the vest on can stop the training. That's really important. One of the fears I think we had in the discussion when we initiated this was, do we have to put somebody through a full training officer program to be a scene safety officer just to wear a vest? And the answer is no. I don't believe you do, because safety is everybody's concern. And we're all here to go home. Mm-hmm. And so putting that vest on, explaining, okay, you're wearing the vest, talking about what your role is, it's really been effective for us. So.
Okay. Now, we didn't rehearse this questions, so I might ask you a question that we might have to pause and give some thought to. But can you give me an example of a training session where the safety person had to step in and say, stop, something isn't exactly right, and before you had a bad outcome of an injury or a near miss, you were able to avert it with the role that the safety officer played? Is there an example of that?
Yeah, I can give you one. We were doing the Denver training with the fallen firefighter. We had the trailer there and everything, and we had the firefighters against the wall, and it was a warm day. And they were working really hard at trying to get this firefighter up over this 44-inch seal. And the safety officer finally, who knew how to do the proper procedure for rapid intervention, said, let's time out. You guys are really working really hard at this. There's an easier way to do it. So rather than watching them continue to overexert themselves, stop the program, went in, talked to the instructor. Here's a better way to do it. Let's work it together, and then find another way to do it. I'll tell you an example of where this could have been used. And it wasn't long ago, the state of Minnesota suffered a line of duty death after training. And it was a result of some aerial apparatus training where there was ropes hanging down and all that stuff. And this is where in our procedure, our SOG, our policy states there has to be a closeout procedure. It isn't uncommon for firefighters to hang around after the fire scene or after the training program and say, you know what, I want to try that again. I think that's great. I want to get on the rope. And I remember how the instructor showed us we can put that basket on. Well, why don't we go out and try it now that everybody's gone? And unfortunately, this firefighter did try to do the scenario, maybe even some horseplay, all the stuff we've done as firefighters over the years, and suffered a loss, a dangerous loss. The closeout procedure means once we are done with training, there's a closeout procedure where everything is broken down in the training program. All of the scenarios, the doors are locked, the gates are down, the ball is, everything's hooked up, the ropes are disconnected. It's trying not to leave an opportunity for disaster because we're all tempted by it. We're firefighters. We think, oh, let's try it again. And next thing you know, you slip because all of the procedures aren't there and the people aren't there to guide you and to see what you're not seeing, and you suffer the loss. So
now, who closes out the drill? Is it the instructor, the safety person, or the two of them working in tandem? How does that...
Right. So the ultimate responsibility of the training program, the entire program, is going to be your training officer or whoever set up the training. So they're responsible to close it out. The safety people, the safety officers that are injected in the round robins wearing the vest, those are just people that will eventually be part of the scenario as well, but understand what their role is. And again, it all starts, if you're going to start this program up, it comes with some instructions, and it comes with some policies and procedures and some enforcement. And if we just say we're going to enforce this and then never enforce it, well, is it enforcing? Yeah. So we start to give ownership to it and get people to believe this is about us. Everybody's going home. Everybody's going home without a bruise, without a sprain, and we're gonna do everything we can to mitigate that from happening.
Now, Chief, you had said earlier, everybody, it's everybody's role to look at the incident from a perspective of safety. Have you found any side benefit from taking firefighters and saying, don the vest, your whole view for the next 3 evolutions is purely from the perspective of safety? Have you seen any different way that they look at real fire scenes, having had to play the role of a safety person? Because you think how many times, like as a young firefighter, or even a mid-level firefighter, nobody ever vaulted you into the position of being responsible for safety.
Right.
You were focused on learning and having fun.
Right.
And I think how my perspective might have changed if somebody, donned that responsibility onto me, and then how that might then transition to how I look at safety in real scenarios. Have you seen any connection there?
Yeah, I can't give any specific examples of that, but I know that that's happening. I think that's a great question. Is we incorporated this program in our countywide fire academy too. So the people who just start out, they start doing this. They have to be thinking safety more than the veteran, the 30-year guy who didn't have the opportunity that we did back. They had the opportunity, but it wasn't a focus. Safety is the key today. And if you're in the fire service and not talking safety, well, you're behind. That's all there is to it. Safety.
How often do you guys train, Jerry?
We train every Wednesday.
Okay. And absent maybe a particular holiday, you're looking at least 52 drills a year. And I think that's important because when you say we haven't had a training injury in 2 years, there might be out there somebody thinking, well, if they're only training once a quarter, that's 8 drills. Well, big deal. They haven't had an injury in 8 drills. You've got 100 drills in, more than 100 drills in without an injury.
Without an injury.
Yeah, that's I guess the exclamation point on the effectiveness of this. Have you noticed any transition of this success on the training ground onto the actual fire grounds? So I don't know if you're trending or tracking fire ground injuries as well. Are you noticing any connection there yet?
Well,
might be too early to have that data.
We're not seeing a lot of the smaller injuries, the back injuries kind of stuff. Certainly the heat exhaustion, the heart-related issues when people are really going strong in the fire, pulling ceiling and all that, those bring different challenges because we're not training at that intensity on the training ground. So different challenges, but I know it's making an impact. And this is a program that the state chiefs, safety committee and stuff is looking at, and we presented to, and they want to bring it forward as well. So.
Okay, so what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's listening to the show that says, all right, I'm inspired. I think that there might be some value to having a training officer assigned on drills. How would they get this going, in their department?
Well, first of all, we can give them everything we have, and we can give them links and stuff to purchase these signs and so on. But let's go back to this whole recruitment retention issue that's happening in this country, and it's all about staffing. Our number one resource is our human being, and if they're not there, we're down human beings, and the trucks don't leave. That's what the safety program is really about. It's about protecting those human beings so they can come to the station and continually be engaged, be part of the process, be the resource we need to operate your $300,000 truck to go help Mr. and Mrs. Smith get their problem done. So it's something that nationally we're trying to change as a culture. The fire service for hundreds of years, or offensive, go in. Combination attack, transitional attack is a new term, or we're not going in. If everybody's out, if everybody's safe at the street, it's risk a little, save a little, risk a lot, for a lot, those kinds of things. So how do you implement it? Well, someone has to have the courage to stand up and say, Chief, or you be the chief and say, times have changed. It's time to look at making sure we're bringing people home and they're able to come back. And I know through a lot of research in our area for grants and so on, especially for recruitment retention, is what's important to you as a new firefighter. And one of the new things that we've learned in our county is we want to make sure that we're safe. Yeah. And when you ask their spouses, what are you concerned with? Well, they're concerned about their safety, obviously. So.
Yeah, Jerry, what would be your counter reply to the people that are out there? And they're out there. All you gotta do is pay attention, and you'll see it. And some will be listening to the show, and maybe they won't because they're not inspired by my message. But you're just another one of those safety zealots, and we're just the one. Look, we're gonna try to bubble wrap firefighters. It's a dangerous job, and there's risks to be taken, and we just can't keep people from getting hurt. And I'm sure you get the idea of the mindset that some firefighters will bring, and those who are trying to bring something like this to their department could be getting some pushback from those people. So how would you, not that you can pry open a closed mind, but how would you try to inspire those people to see the value of bringing this type of safety into the training program?
Mm-hmm. Well, the question really comes, that's old news, that's old technology, right? It's old culture, it's tradition, and that's what drives it. But someone has to have the courage to stand up and say, we need to do something different. I know something that could change the way we have it. Look at career fire departments. Volunteers and on-call have the same issue. But career departments, with the amount of loss due to injury, the overtime costs, and so on, and all the discussions that are going on with budgets and overtime and so on, it could literally be reduced if we forced the safety message in our community, because a lot of the injuries that are happening that are putting people out are preventable. They're predictable and they're preventable. So moving forward with a program that says, hey, we're going to predict what's going to happen to you at training or what could happen, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen, is just a really sound message to have. And it's, as a chief, I think it's the right thing to do as a leader, is to look out after your crew, your human resource. And you hear leaders, I'm after my company and my crew, and you go, we go, and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's great. Then why aren't we Why aren't we concerned about their safety when we're training?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we always concerned about their safety? Because that's part of a company officer's job, if not the most important job,
Mm-hmm.
is to make sure your people get to the scene safely and they go home safely.
Now, as you served as, say, the test program or the pilot program for the League of Minnesota Cities to do this, have other fire departments now taken up the program and implemented it in their organizations? I mean, is this getting traction?
Yeah, it's getting traction, and like I said, the state chiefs safety committee came up and looked over this, and they want to move it forward and make it some sort of a statewide message and move forward with that.
Okay. All right, so in closing, give me 3 takeaways that somebody would want to leave this message with, or advice that you could give them. 3 to 5 bullets of advice or a takeaway message.
Yeah. Well, number one, safety is all of our concern. Getting people to and from the fire scene and get them back to their family is really the number one recruitment retention tool, right? If your firefighters feel scared on a part-time model and their families are afraid because the department doesn't have a good safety plan, or they don't have a good incident command system, or they've got leaders who are using old technology and tradition to run their organization, that scares people away. I've done a research, got a $1.2 million grant from FEMA and we did that, and they want to be safe. That's a big message. Number 2, it's predictable. The injuries that are occurring are predictable. And when you have an injury, it costs you money. It costs all of us money because our insurance rates eventually go up. The community leaders are looking at the injuries and asking questions. And why are we spending $6,000, $10,000 in all this equipment to put on firefighters, but the injuries are all these strains and all this stuff, these bruises that are putting people out of work? They're preventable. And I know our department just south of us here, before they do any training now, they're doing 15 minutes of stretching on those large muscles, which I want to implement as well. 15 minutes, anytime you're doing some major, the SCBA rodeo, the ladder climbing, you're stretching those major muscles, the lower back, the hamstrings, the quads, the arms. And that's the first part of training, is we're stretching out. We're doing some good stretching, and it's working for them, and I really think that makes sense. And finally, this is easy to do. Doesn't cost anything. We can send you this in an email. You can start implementing it, but what it really needs is someone with courage, someone who gets it, someone who sees how the culture of the fire service is moving forward and says, you know what, I believe in this. We need to make a change. You don't have to do it exactly like our SOG. Just take a little step at a time, little step. And every new person you bring in, you start pounding a little bit of training and how important safety is and what it does for not only your fire service, but for your community and for recruitment and retention and everybody's motivation. And then that person, that just becomes part of their job. And the culture changes over time. Mm-hmm. And now safety is the number one topic in your entire fire department.
Yeah.
So those are a few messages that I have.
Great. Jerry, thank you for the gift of your time to sit down with me today and share this powerful safety concept. It's a topic that you and I had talked about way back when the league first approached you, and it's been in place now for a while. So I thought it was a good time just to come back and say, you've been doing it for a while. How's it working? And 2 years of no injuries. I mean, you just put like 5 exclamation points after how well is it working with that kind of result. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Before we close out this episode, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and organizations that have hosted Situational Awareness Matters tour stops in April. Your effort to bring the situational awareness and decision-making classes to your region are greatly appreciated. In the month of April, I was doing programs for the United States Forest Service and the McCall Smoke Jumpers in McCall, Idaho, Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety, Vacaville Fire Department, Santa Clara County Fire Department, the New Hampshire Emergency Dispatchers Association Conference, and the Saskatchewan Association of Fire Chiefs. Upcoming programs, if you're looking to catch up with me, the Fire Department Instructors Conference I'll be presenting on April 22nd, Peace Regional Fire Conference in Peace River, Alberta, May 1. Greenfield Fire Department for a week-long Company Officer Development Institute program, May 4 to 8. Then I'll be at Joint Base Lewis McChord Military Base, May 11 through 14. And then Frisco Fire Department is hosting me on May 27 and 28. If you're interested in attending an upcoming SA Matters tour stop, just head over to SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage that says Upcoming Events. Here's hoping there will be a tour event near you and we'll get a chance to meet up. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners, please consider joining. There are over 5,000 members sharing ideas on how to improve situational awareness and how to make better decisions under stress. Membership is free, and when you sign up, you'll receive a special report that I've created for the new members, 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. It's short and sweet list of 25 situational awareness lessons that can improve your operational safety. If you're not a member, head over to the SA Matters website, click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says Free Membership and to get your special report. As a reminder, every episode of the SA Matters radio show has corresponding show notes page on the SAMatters.com website. The most recent episodes scroll on the front of the homepage. For older episodes, to access them, just go to SAMatters.com / and enter the episode number that you want to see the show notes for. And I always mention the episode number at the beginning of the show. So, for example, you wanted to access episode 48. Just open up a browser, put in www.samatters.com / 48. That'll take you to the page that contains the link to that episode. You can play it right from the desktop and access the show notes, which contain takeaways, photos, video, audio, depends on what the guest is able to provide me. And you can also leave your feedback there on the episode. Just scroll to the bottom of the page, and there's always a place there to leave feedback or ask questions. You can subscribe to SA Matters radio show on iTunes or on Stitcher radio as well. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter with the @sign @RichGasaway or @SAMatters. Those feeds, I share messages on safety and tidbits about situational awareness and occasionally some personal information about my travels and my family. The SA Matters community on Twitter has over 14,000 followers, so thank you for supporting my mission there on Twitter. You can also get connected on Facebook and on LinkedIn. On Facebook, you can like the SA Matters page. On LinkedIn, it's Rich Gasaway. There are over 8,000 folks I'm connected with on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I appreciate your supporting me there as well. Well, that's it. Episode 52 is complete. Thank you to Fire Chief Jerry Streich for sharing your innovative ideas on improving training safety. Thank you to our sponsor, Midwest Fire. And thank you, our listeners, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I sincerely appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to be interviewed on this show, visit SAMatters.com, click on the Contact Us link, and send me your information, and I'll reach back to you and we'll get connected. Thank you in advance for sharing your lessons learned so others may live. If you like the show, go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and search SA Matters Radio, SA Matters Radio, and subscribe to the podcast and leave your feedback. If you like the show, I'd also appreciate it if you'd give it a 5-star review. That'll help others to find the show as well. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit SAMatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.